What in the world do Liz Croken and Laura Logan think they're doing? And better question, when are patriots going to stop falling for and allowing snakes like these two women to grift off middle-class America and the notion of the atrocity of child sex trafficking? I'm going to unravel the Laura Logan and Liz Croken psyop, but just look at this picture and tell me, what do you discern? If you were going to depict yourself as an angel, as a vampire hunter, why in the world would you wear all red like the devil? This is not a good look. Here's some more symbolism with the Freemasonry tiles, Alice in Wonderland, and the panda. Here she is at a Clinton Kane event. This is something that she wrote called Malice, and she hashtagged 666. Here are two excerpts. You might want to screenshot these if you want to read these. Here's one, and here is another. They are very, very disturbing. The first kiss of death would be General Flynn starting to push you. This is basically the green light for any psyops incoming. He's been building up Laura Logan for a while. In fact, they're really old friends, which we'll get into that. But when she claimed to be quote unquote canceled from Newsmax, I mean, come on. Why was she even with Newsmax in the first place? They're literally Clinton supporters. So in my opinion, it was just something to happen in order to give her more credibility. So she's the only one talking about adrenochrome, et cetera, et cetera. I saw all of this coming from a mile away back in October. Recently, America's Future had a fundraiser at Mar-a-Lago. This does two things. It gives the appearance that all these people are close to Trump. As you can see here, that Liz Croken herself admitted to him making a surprise appearance, while also giving the mainstream media the opportunity to smear him, like we see here, and many more outlets here. America's Future launches Project Defend and Protect Our Children to eradicate the exploitation and trafficking of children in America. When I say that, you might think, wow, that's great. But if you know anything about America's Future and who runs it, you would know that they're a bunch of grifting traders and that this is a new low to exploit children and the notion of child trafficking in order to funnel more money from middle-class America. This is Joe Flynn, Michael Flynn's brother. He's made many appearances where he makes himself look like a complete fool and has no respect whatsoever for our questions of him. He even went as low as to joke about Jesus being a communist. These are the people who are behind, quote unquote, America's Future. Want to see a couple more? The board has Laura Logan, Liz Croken, Basil Baz, Jaco Booyens, and others. Here's Jaco Booyens, an actor pictured with Tim Tebow. You might be thinking to yourself, well, what's the big deal, right? Tim Tebow's a good guy. Wrong. I faced a lot of resistance when I started to dig in him a few months ago. Tim Tebow's trafficking organization not only uses the Clinton hotline number, but he even listed the Hands and Feet Project as his orphan care partners, and it exists in Haiti. Well, why is that a big deal? Have you ever heard of Corrigan Clay? He's the executive director at the Hands and Feet Project. Corrigan Clay, who is an American pastor, and you see here pictured with Bill Clinton, moved to Haiti to teach impoverished residents marketable job skills. He adopted 2 Haitian orphans, and he opened an evangelical preschool along the way. He is now facing U.S. charges for engaging in illicit sexual conduct with a child while living in the Caribbean nation. He adopted orphans in Haiti and boasted numerous celebrity clients, including Kim Kardashian, the Clintons, Oprah, Disney, Rainn Wilson, Ben Stiller, and many more. Still think Tim Tebow's a good guy? Another one is another actor and quote unquote former CIA, because those exist, right? There is so much more on each of these people if people would just start to dig again instead of trusting everyone with their hand out, asking you for money for a quote good cause. We also got Ed Martin, who used to work for CNN and has deep ties to the Vatican. by way of a Rotary scholarship. Rotary is a Masonic Jewish organization of business and professional leaders that claim to provide humanitarian service. But this photo right here should be enough to tell you that that's probably not the case. So Ed Martin, he is the current president of America's Future, Inc. with Michael Flynn and Joe Flynn. He was quoted bragging that he had lunch with Pope John Paul II almost every day. He served as a special assistant to Pope John Paul II. Screenshot this if you want to know more. Pope John Paul II said that he just couldn't deal with the child sex abuse scandal. He was also given credit by the ADL for doing the most to pave the way between Catholic-Jewish relations. And he was really good friends with Billy Graham, which is a problem and a video all on its own. This is all I have time for today, but I hope that's enough to get your brain working on why these people shouldn't just immediately be trusted. In the next part of the video, I'm going to talk about Pizzagate and how it was part of a psyop. So your cognitive dissonance might kick in. But before you get your panties in a bunch, I'm not saying that the trafficking is not real. I'm saying that they had to become the face of it so they can discredit it. And now, when you bring up any idea of child sex trafficking, you're immediately labeled a conspiracy theory QAnon nut. So, in fact, they did a phenomenal job. If you stick around, I'll show you. But let me just give you a quick sneak peek. While we all know what we saw in regards to the screenshots of Comet Pizza, I want you to put what you know to the side and separate that from the psyop that was launched. I mean, the absolute state of Pizzagate is that it was started with a username named FBI Anon. So FBI Anon claimed that Bill and Hillary love foreign donors so much they get paid in children as well as money. Then a bot account linked with a private group known as Trump's War Room tweeted out an October 29th Facebook post. The Facebook post came from a user on Facebook called Carmen Katz. They couldn't find anyone with that name in the entire state. Carmen Katz claimed to have info from an NYPD source revealing the Clintons' involvement in an international child enslavement and sex ring. While I don't doubt any of that is true based on what I know about Haiti and the Clintons and everything that we've seen happen from this date to now, what happens next and who it's tied to will absolutely blow your mind in the lengths they will go to make you look crazy. And I'll just give you a little hint. His name rhymes with bike Flynn. Thanks for watching, y'all. Sorry I ran out of time, but I'll get to a part 2 as soon as I can. Okay, welcome back, y'all. So sorry for the delay, but this is going to be part 2 of the Pizzagate psyop featuring Liz Croken, the face of Pizzagate, the vampire hunter, the one who hashtags 666 and writes a disgusting book, the one who Michael Flynn says we must follow. But he also said you have to follow propagandist Laura Logan, who's been super outspoken about adrenochrome and all the child sex trafficking things lately because they were propping her up to be on the latest America's Future board with a bunch of other bad actors. Please take the time to research all of these people so you can see what I'm talking about. But let's get into how the Pizzagate psyop started. Again, don't let your cognitive dissonance kick in here because I'm not saying that child sex trafficking isn't real. I'm saying that Liz Croken entered to control the narrative about the truth coming out. And she did it with a bunch of other people. So let's just dig in to what that looks like so we can recognize it in the future. So we're going to start at a post that appeared on 4chan in July 2016 using the name FBI Anon. Can't make this stuff up. But anyway, their post said Bill and Hillary love foreign donors so much and that they also get paid with children. Remember, we're looking at this from the perspective of how the psyop was propped up and rolled out. I am not debating the validity of these claims, just looking at the psyop. Then in October of 2016, there was a Facebook post by someone named Carmen Katz. She claimed to have info from an NYPD source revealing the Clintons' involvement in an international child enslavement and sex ring. Right after that, from October 29th through December 4th, this was shared on Twitter roughly 1.4 million times by more than 250,000 accounts in 5 weeks. So I ask you, do things go viral on accident? And I ask you, is Twitter a bot farm? And could this easily be carried out? The day before, October 28th, James Comey announced the reopening of the investigation into Hillary Clinton's private email server. And then the very next day, the Facebook user claimed the inside knowledge and posted the post that went viral. What did Flynn have to say about Comey?
The FBI director, who's a friend of mine, a great friend of mine, we've done a bunch of things together, we've testified together. A couple of weeks ago, lays out in rhyme and verse how the former Secretary of State of the United States of America placed this country's national security not at risk, but at high risk. At high risk, lays it out. And should have kept his mouth shut. But he should have kept his mouth shut. At the end, he should have just, nothing but the facts, right? Nothing but the facts laid out and say, I'm not going to offer my judgment. I'm going to turn it over to the Attorney General. Put the burden on her. She's the Attorney General of the United States of America. It's not the FBI.
So I don't really care what you think of Rolling Stone or what you consider a good source. There are no good sources, and this is an information war, and we have to look at everything. So this article actually did a great job of breaking this apart. Did it come at it from an angle of smearing the right? Yeah, but that's to be expected. Anyways, the Facebook post that went viral was done from a lady called Carmen Katz. They couldn't find anyone in the state with that name, but they did trace it down to a Cynthia Campbell in Joplin, Missouri, based on some of these petitions that she would post and being the last signature on there. So the journalist went and asked her a few questions. Based on the interaction that was written about in Rolling Stone, it sounded like she was spooked, but it sounded like she was behind the initial post. But this is what happens on the boards. So FBI Anon planted something on 4chan, and they were basically waiting for someone organic to pick it up. So for it to gain traction, propagandists plant false information on anonymous boards, hoping someone real will pick it up and add a human touch to the acts of digital manipulation. And I believe that's exactly what happened here. So the story was planted, someone picked it up, and then a bot account linked with a private group known as Trump's War Room tweeted out the Facebook post. And from there, it went viral. The user was called Eagle Wings, and the @ is here. They posted it to Twitter. Their profile picture shows a smiling middle-aged woman. And you wouldn't believe it, but Sebastian Gorka and Michael Flynn both followed her. Funny, when Jerome Corsi dropped some sauce, he claimed that it came from Silicon Valley Insider Anon. FBI Anon, Silicon Valley Anon, it's a tactic. So this Twitter account tweets more than 50,000 times since November 2015 to 120,000 followers as of November 2017. And a researcher from Future's Digital Intelligence Lab said Eagle Wings is a highly automated account and part of a bot network, a centrally controlled group of social media accounts. A message that someone or an organization wants to trend is typically sent out by, quote, shepherd accounts. That's how he explained it. The shepherd's messages are amplified by sheepdog accounts. So these two types of accounts guide a herd of bots who mindlessly repost content in the digital equivalent of sheep rushing in the same direction and bleating loudly. So in proving that and latching onto this story, one can infer that it was all manipulated and controlled. And of course, Mike Flynn followed this account. What are the odds? If you go on to read that article, it explains how this was made viral by a ton of bot accounts and what we now know as some people who I would categorize as the Flynn Network. So this was being pushed. Then on November 2nd, InfoWars breaks the Pizzagate story. We know that they later apologized for that. So he apologized the same day that the shooter went into the comment. False flag, coordinated, what say you? So November 2nd, InfoWars breaks the story. On November 4th, Eric Prince claims that the Clintons were being investigated for money laundering and pedophilia. November 16, Jack Posobiec went to comment and live streamed his, quote, investigation. All the usual suspects accounted for. The same day that InfoWars broke the story, and 2 days before Eric Prince went and did the interview, General Flynn shared a link from True Pundit that was a pro-Trump propaganda site. It was only registered in March 2016, and if you looked at it, it was the furthest thing from a credible source. But incredibly, it was none other than Michael Flynn who helped bring that article to the attention of the masses with a tweet that very same day that InfoWars picked it up and broke the story. Flynn Jr. kept the story going, and Jack Posobiec gassed it up. Again, we all saw what we saw in regards to Pizzagate. That doesn't negate away from this conspiracy. And we know that the Finders Cult has existed for decades. And if you look up the Franklin cover-up, it's real. The three-letter organizations are complicit in child crimes. It is real. There's declassified documents to look it up. But what we're looking at is how they've controlled the narrative. Enter Liz Croken. Liz Croken is the face of the crazy controlled narrative. She ran with it. She was affiliated with the Bush campaign in 2000, and then she became a freelance writer for a variety of Hollywood tabloids. Because she was in it, she was the perfect person to expose, right? Or maybe she's obsessed with being famous and will do anything to acquire that. She also pushed the JFK Jr. is alive theory, which also makes people look insane. Marjorie Taylor Greene actually credits Liz Croken on where she heard of Pizzagate.
Q is telling us he's an anonymous source and he's on 4chan, and more and more people are starting to talk about him. I first heard about him from Liz Croken and just saw some of her posts, and she's been yelling all along that Mueller wears a white hat. She's been saying all along that he is a good guy in this and he's really going after the swamp creatures, and that it's under the guise that he's looking into Trump-Russian collusion. So if she's correct, gosh, she's going to be winning big. So I think that's awesome.
That really makes me cringe. You can see that Liz Croken has appeared all over the Flynn Network on Ann Vandersteel. Michael Smith, who's part of Out of the Shadows, was on Clay Clark. Kevin Shipp, who is a spook, was on Mike Adams. She was also part of the QAnon documentary on HBO that made people look insane. She's friends with Steve Bannon and Anna Kate, both assets. Here she is pictured with George Bush. So you take someone fueled by fame who has connections in DC as well as Hollywood and then make them the face of Pizzagate. That's where she came in. So controlling the narrative and then making those who believe there is a child sex trafficking conspiracy, which there is, the Finders Cult and Franklin cover-up, minimized to a damn pizza place basement, which is easy to discredit in people's minds when it is in reality decades, if not centuries, of organized trafficking and sadistic practices. So there is also a spiritual aspect to this where they use trafficking as part of the big red devil, similarly to the jab, WEF, and WO, and they use these atrocities to subvert you. The end will justify the means. So, in my opinion, Liz Croken is a disinformation agent. She is the face of the Pizzagate narrative. She does her part to make everyone look crazy, and when Robot Interiors was exposing her, the Flynn Network was activated to attack her. They said that she was a potential MKUltra victim, exhibiting MAGA bomber traits, leftist, Clinton-connected history, and saying threatening and violent things, and even tagged the FBI. Wow. What's interesting is when we first started digging on Flynn, Pepe Deluxe came in to threaten us when we started to dig into We the Media. He said he'll let everyone know that we're all blackpilled and attacking Flynn, and he said he'll make a list of our stupid crew and he'll pass it along to the Flynn family. And then he went on to name drop Joe M., Liz Croken, and Jordan Sather. Kevin Shipp was also involved in the Out of Shadows documentary. He defended Flynn and his occult prayer while also mocking Christians. I personally do not believe in, quote, former, quote, CIA. Here's Field McConnell, Kevin Shipp, Mike Adams, John B. Wells from Coast to Coast, Stuart Rhodes, Oath Keepers, Ty Bellinger, just all in support of General Flynn, Sidney Powell. This was in 2018. These networks exist for a while. It's not new, and it's not about the current state of America. It's always been about deceit and controlling the narratives. So I hope this helps you see how contrived it all is, and that the damage they have done to the idea and the voice of child sex trafficking is much higher than any good they've done. Because now when you bring the idea up, you are immediately filed and connected to QAnon. This is sick because, like I said, it goes way beyond Q ever existing, and it is real, and it's provable by declassified documents in regards to Finder's Cult and other situations. So ask yourself why Liz focuses on things that muddle her story. If she was a real journalist, she wouldn't be talking about things that she couldn't prove in order to make people look insane. So when people look at you like you have 5 heads when you bring up child sex trafficking, thank people like Liz Croken. All right, hope this helps. Have a good day.